Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The chilling silence of the Newman mansion was broken only by the faint creak of the floorboards as Victoria Newman confronted the man who had shattered her entire world. "You lied to me, Holden," she screamed, her voice trembling with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. The firelight flickered across her tear-streaked face, illuminating the betrayal that had just ripped through her soul. Holden Novak stood motionless, his expression a haunting blend of guilt and desperation. The man who had once sworn he'd never hurt her was now the very reason her heart felt like it had been ripped from her chest. "You're not going to tell anyone," Holden said quietly, but there was a cold finality in his tone that made Victoria's blood run cold. "You can't tell anyone. Not about Claire." The secret, dark, twisted, and unforgivable, hung between them like a storm cloud about to break. Victoria took a trembling step back, clutching the DNA results in her hand. "She's not my daughter," she whispered, her voice cracking. "She's not mine, she's yours." The papers shook in her grasp, and for a moment Holden's mask of calm broke, his eyes flashed with pure panic. The truth was out, and there was no putting it back. The secret that bound Claire to Holden, not just as partners in deception, but by blood, was about to explode. Claire Newman, the girl Victoria had fought to protect, wasn't her child at all. She was Holden's daughter from an affair he'd buried years ago, a truth that could destroy not just Victoria, but the entire Newman family. "You can't do this," Holden said sharply, stepping toward her. "You don't understand what will happen if this gets out." But Victoria's fury overpowered her fear. "You lied to me, Holden. You made me love that girl, raise her, believe she was mine," she cried, her voice echoing through the mansion's grand hall. "You stole my life, my daughter, and my sanity." Holden's face twisted in anguish. "I did it to protect her," he hissed. "Claire didn't ask for any of this. You don't know what she's capable of, what she's done." But Victoria wasn't listening anymore, her focus was on the trembling truth in her hands. The DNA results were irrefutable. Claire's blood wasn't hers. It was Holden's. "You think I'll let you bury this?" she spat. "The world will know. Victor will know. Nikki, everyone will know what you did." Holden's heartbeat pounded in his ears. Every word she spoke felt like a dagger to his chest. He had loved Victoria once. Maybe, deep down, he still did. But if she exposed Claire's secret, everything would unravel, the lies, the cover-ups, the manipulations that had kept his daughter safe from her own sins. And in that moment, love gave way to madness. "Don't make me do this," he whispered, his voice breaking. But Victoria, shaking with rage, took a step closer. "You already did, Holden," she said coldly. "You ruined everything." Then she turned, intent on leaving, intent on telling the world. Holden's mind went blank. Years of guilt, of fear, of desperation clawed their way to the surface all at once. Before he even realized it, his hand had reached out, grabbing her arm with a grip that was far too strong. "You can't go," he said hoarsely. "I won't let you." Victoria struggled, her scream echoing through the halls. "Let me go," she cried, thrashing in his grasp. But Holden's world was spinning. He saw flashes of Claire, her tears, her trembling hands, her whispered pleas to keep her secret safe. "If she finds out," Claire had once said, "she'll destroy me, Dad." Those words echoed now like a curse in his mind. In a blur of panic and heartbreak, Holden shoved Victoria against the wall. The force of it made the framed photos rattle violently. "Please," he begged, tears mixing with sweat. "Just forget this. Please, Victoria, don't make me," but Victoria's voice cut him off like a blade. "You're a monster," she spat. "You and Claire deserve each other." Her words ignited something dark in him, a lifetime of buried guilt combusting in a single, devastating second. His hands wrapped around her shoulders, then her throat. "Don't call me that," he growled through gritted teeth. "Don't you dare." Her eyes widened in terror as she gasped for air, clawing at his arms. "Holden, stop," she choked out, but the floodgates of his rage were open. He didn't stop. He couldn't. The struggle was brief but brutal. Furniture toppled, a vase shattered, and Victoria's final scream pierced the night like a knife. Then, silence. Utter, suffocating silence. Holden stumbled backward, his breath ragged, his hands trembling as he stared at what he'd done. Victoria lay still on the floor, her hair fanned out like a dark halo, her lifeless eyes fixed on the ceiling. For a long moment, Holden just stared, unable to process the horror of his own actions. His fingers were smeared with her blood. "No," he whispered. "Oh God, no." The weight of it hit him all at once, what he had done, what he had taken from the world, what he could never undo. The fire crackled behind him as he sank to his knees beside her, his sobs echoing through the room. "You left me no choice," he whispered, touching her cold hand. "You were going to destroy her." But deep down, he knew it wasn't true. There was always a choice, and he had chosen murder. He could still hear Claire's voice in his head, the one that had haunted him for weeks. "She's getting too close, Dad," she had said. "If she finds out what I did to Audra, it's over." That memory stabbed at his conscience now, the truth twisting like a knife. Holden hadn't killed Victoria to protect Claire's secret, he'd killed her to protect himself from losing her. Outside, the wind howled through the trees as if the night itself was mourning Victoria's death. In the distance, a siren wailed, someone had heard the scream. Holden wiped his hands on his shirt, leaving dark crimson smears across the fabric. He knew he had only minutes before someone arrived. His mind raced. He had to make it look like an accident, like anything but what it was. He dragged Victoria's body toward the fireplace, his breath coming in panicked gasps. But then, something stopped him. Her phone lay on the floor, the screen still glowing. A half-written text message blinked at him. "Nick, Holden's lying." "Claire," the message ended abruptly, unfinished. Holden picked up the phone with shaking hands and deleted it, staring at his reflection in the black screen afterward. The man staring back at him wasn't Holden Novak anymore. He was something else. Something monstrous. As dawn broke over Genoa City, the mansion was swarming with police. Nikki Newman stood frozen in shock, her hand over her mouth as she stared at the body of her daughter being carried out under a white sheet. "No," she whispered, tears streaking down her face. "Not my Victoria." Victor Newman, usually a pillar of control, was pale and silent, his eyes burning with rage and sorrow. "Find who did this," he growled to the detectives. "Find them and make them pay." But even as he spoke, Holden was standing just feet away, silent, trembling, pretending to be the grieving friend, the man who found her. His performance was flawless, tears streaming down his face, his voice breaking as he told the police he'd arrived too late. Claire stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Her eyes flickered between the detectives, the covered body, and her father. When their gazes met, something dark and unspoken passed between them. She knew. She didn't need words. Holden had done the unthinkable, for her. Later, when the mansion emptied and the police had gone, Holden sat alone in Victoria's study, staring at the shattered vase on the floor. The bloodstain had already begun to dry. "It's over," he whispered to himself, but the words felt hollow. Because he knew it wasn't over. Secrets never stayed buried in Genoa City for long. That night, Claire entered quietly, closing the door behind her. "They think it was an accident," she said softly. "A fall. They don't suspect you." Holden looked up at her, his eyes hollow. "I killed her," he said flatly. "Don't say that," Claire snapped, her voice trembling. "You did what you had to. You protected me." But Holden's guilt was too heavy to contain. "She was right," he muttered. "I'm a monster." Claire stepped closer, tears in her eyes. "No. You're my father. And you saved me." Her words were meant to comfort, but instead they twisted like a knife. Because now, for the first time, Holden realized what he'd truly created, a legacy of lies, blood, and darkness that would consume them both. As the days passed, whispers began to spread through Genoa city. The autopsy results were inconclusive. Victor's private investigator found inconsistencies in Holden's story. And one night, in a dimly lit office, Nick Newman slammed a folder onto his desk. Inside, photos of Holden with blood on his hands, caught by a hidden camera Victoria had installed the week before. "You're going down," Nick growled under his breath. Holden's facade was crumbling, and he knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. Claire begged him to run, to disappear before it was too late. But Holden refused. "If I run," he said, staring out the window into the rain, "they'll know I did it. I can't let that happen. Not to you." In the end, guilt was his undoing. Alone in the same mansion where he had taken Victoria's life, Holden poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared at the empty fireplace. He could almost hear her voice, soft, broken, echoing in his mind, "You're not my daughter." The words that had set everything in motion, the truth that had destroyed everything he loved. He whispered into the silence, "I'm sorry, Victoria. I never meant to hurt you." But the only answer was the crackle of the fire and the sound of his own quiet sobs. When the police finally arrived with a warrant, they found the study empty, only a note on the desk, written in trembling handwriting, "I couldn't protect her without destroying myself. Tell Claire I'm sorry." Holden Novak was gone, vanished into the night. But in Genoa city, ghosts have a way of returning. And as Claire stared out at the rain-soaked horizon, clutching the note to her chest, she whispered, "It's not over, Dad. It's never over." Because in a town built on lies, blood always finds its way to the surface. And Victoria's final scream would haunt Holden, and Claire, forever. Rain fell over Genoa city that night like a curtain of grief, washing the blood from the streets but never from the hearts of those left behind. The world outside the Newman estate was moving on, unaware that inside, a tragedy had ripped through the foundation of one of the most powerful families in Wisconsin. But behind the mansion's walls, silence ruled, heavy, suffocating silence. Holden Novak's disappearance had become the talk of the town. Reporters hovered outside the gates like vultures, while inside, Victor Newman's fury burned brighter than ever. "He killed my daughter," Victor growled through clenched teeth, his voice low and trembling with vengeance. "And I will make him pay with his life." Nikki sat beside him, pale and broken, her hand clutching a photo of Victoria and Claire. "She loved him once," Nikki whispered, her voice distant. "How could he do this to her?" But even as the question hung in the air, Victor had already made up his mind, Holden Novak wouldn't escape justice. Not this time. Across town, Holden sat alone in a rundown motel room off Highway 18, his reflection in the cracked mirror barely recognizable. His once charming face was now pale and gaunt, his eyes haunted. He hadn't slept in days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, Victoria, her face twisted in pain, her voice echoing in his mind. "You lied to me, Holden." He couldn't escape it. He couldn't escape her. The room was littered with empty whiskey bottles and newspaper clippings about her death. Each headline screamed the same thing, "New details emerge in Newman murder mystery." But what truly haunted him was the one line in the article that mentioned Claire, Victoria's daughter, Claire Newman, has refused to speak publicly about her mother's death. That silence told him everything. Claire wasn't mourning Victoria. She was protecting him. He stared down at the blood-stained locket on the table, the one Victoria had worn the night she died. He'd taken it without thinking, clutching it as if it could somehow bring her back. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he whispered to the locket, tears streaming down his face. But no amount of apologies could undo what he'd done. And now, Holden was trapped between guilt and survival. He thought about turning himself in, confessing everything. But then he pictured Claire, standing before a courtroom, her dark secret exposed to the world. He couldn't let that happen. He had already damned himself to save her, he couldn't let her fall too. Meanwhile, at Newman Enterprises, chaos reigned. Victor had launched his own investigation, hiring private security, interrogating every employee, and demanding surveillance footage from every corner of Victoria's home and office. Nick and Nikki were trying to hold the family together, but grief was pulling them apart. Nick spent his nights drinking, drowning in memories of his sister's laughter, her strength, her ambition. "She didn't deserve this," he muttered one night to Sharon, who came to check on him. "She trusted that man, and he killed her." Sharon sighed softly. "Grief makes people do terrible things, Nick. But revenge will destroy you too." Nick's eyes hardened. "Maybe destruction's exactly what I need." Claire, on the other hand, had become an enigma. At Victoria's funeral, she stood cold and composed, her black veil hiding her expression. People whispered about her calm demeanor, some calling it shock, others suspicion. But those who looked closer saw the faint tremor in her hands, the flicker of fear in her eyes whenever Victor mentioned Holden's name. Inside, she was a hurricane of guilt and terror. She replayed the night over and over, her father's voice, the sound of Victoria's scream, the thud as her body hit the floor. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to scream. But she couldn't. Because she knew the truth, she had caused it. It had started weeks before the murder. Victoria had grown suspicious after overhearing fragments of a conversation between Holden and Claire. The words bloodline and DNA had stuck in her mind. Her instincts told her something was wrong. So, she ran a secret DNA test, matching Claire's genetic profile to her own. The results shattered everything. The truth she had once believed, that Claire was her biological daughter, was a lie. But it wasn't the lie itself that destroyed her. It was realizing who the real father was. Holden Novak. A man she had trusted, loved, and welcomed into her home. The man who had seduced her with kindness, who had stood by her side through corporate wars and family chaos. He was the father of the child she had thought was hers. And worse, he'd known it all along. When she confronted him, Holden panicked. He knew Victoria was unpredictable, emotional, loyal to her father above all else. If she told Victor what she knew, it would destroy Claire, and him. So, he did the unthinkable. Now, as he sat in that motel, every decision he'd ever made came crashing down on him. He picked up his phone more than once, his thumb hovering over Claire's number. But every time, he stopped himself. What could he say? "I killed her for you?" Back in Genoa City, Detective Chance Chancellor was following a trail that everyone else seemed to overlook. "Holden didn't plan this," he said to his partner one night. "This wasn't premeditated. It was emotional, impulsive. There's something missing." His partner frowned. "You think someone else was involved?" Chance nodded slowly. "Maybe not directly, but yeah. I think someone pushed him to it." That theory led him to Claire. He started digging through her background, her emails, her messages, her movements before and after the murder. And what he found chilled him to the core. A week before Victoria's death, Claire had met with Holden in secret, at a storage facility outside the city. Security footage showed the two arguing, Claire's face twisted in anger. Audio from a nearby camera picked up fragments of their conversation. "She's getting close. Don't worry, I'll handle it." "You said that before, Dad." The word Dad echoed like a gunshot. Chance replayed it over and over. That was all the proof he needed. Claire knew Holden was her father. And she'd known before Victoria's death. The case had just taken a dark turn. When Chance brought the evidence to Victor, the patriarch's rage ignited. "She lied to me too," Victor said coldly. "My own granddaughter." But Nikki begged him to stop. "Victor, please. She's lost her mother. Don't turn this into another war." But Victor was done with mercy. "I won't rest until I know exactly what happened in that room." Claire, sensing the walls closing in, turned to the one person she thought might understand, Nick. Late one night, she appeared at his door, her eyes swollen from crying. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she whispered. "He said he would just talk to her." Nick stared at her in disbelief. "You knew?" She hesitated, then nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I never thought he loved her, Nick. He just snapped. Nick's expression hardened. You covered for him. I was trying to protect him, she cried. He's my father. The confession broke Nick. He turned away, shaking his head. You're just like him, he muttered. Lying, covering up, pretending. No, she cried. I'm not. But it was too late. The trust was gone. The Newman family, already fractured by grief, now stood on the brink of total collapse. Victor wanted justice. Nicky wanted peace. Nick wanted revenge. And Claire just wanted to disappear. Days later, news broke that Holden had been spotted in Chicago. The report spread like wildfire. He's alive, Victor said, slamming the newspaper onto his desk. And I'm going to find him. Within hours, he had men on the ground. But Holden, always one step ahead, had already fled again, this time under a new name, with forged papers and a plan to vanish for good. He stayed off the grid, moving from motel to motel, haunted by ghosts only he could see. Every night, he dreamed of Victoria's face, her voice whispering, "You're not my daughter." The phrase looped endlessly, driving him deeper into madness. One stormy night, Holden finally broke. He called Claire. When she answered, her breath hitched. "Dad," she whispered. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice trembling. "They'll find me soon. I can't keep running." "Then don't," she pleaded. "Come home. We'll figure it out together." But Holden's tone darkened. "No, Claire. There's no coming back from this. I killed her."